community, and community meets gaming, right? And so, from recording studios to streaming setups, Jaye, aka Letter J Watts, has built a unique path, transforming her passion for performance into an inclusive hub for creators in the heart of Times Square. It's because you're a man, obviously. We'll talk about what it means to pivot fearlessly, build community from scratch, and also turn passion into purpose. And so, Jay, some people may know you from your music career, but can you just give us a quick intro about that and then how that evolved into gaming and business?
Yeah, of course. So I think the like fast story is I was born in Barahona in DR. Shout out to my but I moved to the States when I was 4, I grew up in Texas. So I've actually been playing musical instruments and singing since I was 5. And I moved to New York for music, so I signed my first record deal here. Fast forward to 1 Grammy win and a couple of Grammy nods. Thank y'all, that's so sweet. So this is funny, y'all will laugh at this story. So, when I was little, I got an NES and I got hot. And I didn't know what the NES game system was, but I feel like it was very expensive. And so I held on to it. But when I came to the States, I learned that this was a Nintendo system. And on my block, I was the only girl with the gaming system. So I tell people that I watched gaming become the grand equalizer of my life very young, because you grew up in Texas, you don't see a lot of brown people that speak Spanish, and everybody was looking like, why do you look like that, and why do you sound like that? And it didn't matter if I was a woman, it didn't matter my culture, it didn't matter, none of those things mattered, because gaming was the thing. The most important thing was, no one could find the princess faster than me in Super Mario Brothers. And so I watched gaming become this very connecting force, and when you get older, society tells you girls don't play games. And now my mom and I joke about it because I buy her things from playing games. But when I dissected the industry, I realized there was music in every game, but nobody was talking about how to put it in there. And then I fell in love with the stories, the characters that we all love, right? From anime to the comic characters and the characters in games. But I was like, who's writing those stories? So I fell in love with the creative part of the development process, and it started with me being a creative, and then even in the technical spheres, understanding how to apply myself into it.
Ooh, I love that. I love that. You know what? I think sometimes for creatives, it's so hard to make that transition, right? Like where, hey, I'm a creator and I know I want to make, I want to create, I want to do, but then there's a whole nother component of that, right? I think that what's been key nowadays to help that transition, and I think even from Passport Day, is community, right? Like community is what I think really helps each of us kind of learn from each other, level from each other, and take that next step. And it's also one of the things that definitely helped Coexist Game House become where it is today. So can we just kind of bring everyone up to speed on how that started and then how you got now to Times Square?
Yeah, of course. So one, I want to quote my friend Scott. He's like somewhere here, but one of the things he always says is community builds immunity. And I love that so much because one, there's so much sickness, both physically, but also just figuratively in the world. And when we're together, we're so solid, we're impenetrable. So I want to say that first. And it's why Coexist existed. So first I started Coexist in my Brooklyn duplex. So like that's the beginning of this thing. I would go to all the conventions, y'all know Comic-Con is happening right now. And there's like Anime OIC and there's PAX, and I would go to these different places, and my claim to fame was I competed in games. So my 4 championships for some of you gamer snobs that might be out there. If y'all want to see me in Soul Calibur, Tekken Tag, Dirt, or like 4 virtual fighters.
Soul
Ooh, I got
Calibur is
you.
also mine though.
But what?
We might have to go against in Soul Calibur. Soul
Oh
Calibur
man,
which one was it?
I'm Ivy.
Is it
Like,
2?
no, the first one.
Oh, the first one? See,
Yeah.
Nightmare or Siegfried? Siegfried in the first one.
Nah, I'm retro.
Sorry,
I'm
I had to
retro.
nerd out. I apologize.
Taking it back. We're speaking another language. But I went to all these different conventions, and I never really saw the representation that I grew up with. Interestingly enough, like in the fighting game community, it's very black and brown. You know this.
1000%.
Yeah, so like those fighting games we're talking about, like if you look up Evo, just even if you get a moment, EVO, look up those words, If you go to conventions like that, you're seeing like 95% of us. Everybody in those rooms look like us. But how many of you have seen us on the propaganda, the things that show gamers? No, right? And it's like, why not? Because there was this digital divide. We were talking about League of Legends and Fortnite, these games like League of Legends and then like Dota, they're MMOs, like multi online, I don't even know, MOBAs or multi online battle arenas, all the letters. But the point is they were played on PCs. And there was a huge difference between a $3,000 PC, which a lot of our communities cannot afford, versus the $300 console, which we were all playing on. If you can't compete on the massive rig, how are you supposed to build a game off of it? So what I wanted to do was build and create an environment that would navigate us from consumer to the creator of the IP. Because ownership, right? Ownership is not just about real estate. There's digital ownership too. Intellectual property is intellectual property, not just what we're touching or feeling. But I didn't see that pathway toward it, so I used what I had. And I had my little Brooklyn duplex. She was lit or whatever. I used to Airbnb the rooms and everything. But in each one of the Airbnb rooms, I had gaming systems. So I had a green room, a blue room, and an orange room. The green room was the Xbox room, the blue room was the PlayStation room, and the orange room was the Sega room. And I used to throw these monthly gaming parties. The purpose of the party was to show what inclusivity was and to build community through that. So there was just a type of representation I didn't see at the conventions. There was tables with like board games and card games and tabletop games. There were rooms where people could vibe out to music that was like in games that we do. We used to do trivia. Like if right now if I said everybody do the song with me. Exactly. And so imagine how the same way we love karaoke, we were now doing that around an industry that brought us together. So it was just a vibe. And from that, people felt a place of home. They felt comfort there because it wasn't just the nostalgia of like our childhood. It was showing them this industry is not just bringing us together, but now we were having conversations about how we could be a part of it, a more sustainable part of it, a part of the growth of it. Because some people were bullied for this, and now the times were changing. We realized how important we were contributing to its growth, and I was like, it's enough of conversations. Now it's time for execution. That was the beginning of Coexist and us building a membership that would allow us to funnel dollars back into our communities and then recycle them back so that we can continue growing.
I love that term execution, right? Like I think I even seen maybe in one of your recent sessions where you talk about being an executioner, right? Like, and you know, I think that is one of those key words that sometimes, especially as creatives, we miss, right? Because all these ideas, all these things that are technically actionable, they stay here, right? And we never bring them out into this real space. Like I'm a big proponent of making everything real, even though I'm a huge digital person, right? Like I work with screens. I have a phone here. I have 5 different screens at my desk, right? I still have a physical notebook. And before I do anything, I actually have to write it down. I have to bring it here first, right? Like that's like my big thing. I have to make it real, bring it to this plane of existence, and then we can kind of move forward and execute, right? And speaking about execution, right? You've done now global game jams, right? You've done a slew of different events and activations that you have at Coexist Game House, not just for your members, but even for other brands and other amazing individuals who I've seen, maybe even like Captain America or somebody like that was there recently. What would you call the process for making these events meaningful, inclusive, and what does it mean for you to even open up this space for these larger brands and these larger individuals?
Yeah. So one, when I say it starts and ends with community, that's the representation. Like we're everything. That authenticity a lot of times is what brands lack. They need us in order to keep them relevant. And so in understanding how important we are to just the cultures we create, I needed to focus on this word ecosystem. You guys have heard of it, but I don't know if they really understood what it meant, like the ecology of a system. What's the entry point? How do I navigate from here to here? So in the gaming industry, for me, it is creative, it's technical, and it's logistical. So those that like, you think of building a game, it's programming, right? Is that what y'all think about, right? Until you hear those other things I said, and you're like, there are all these creative elements that fit into this massive, one piece of IP. So there's a slide on our deck, it says one video game. And then I extract all the jobs that it takes to create that one IP. And how many people do those jobs. And what you realize is you're building a world. And these brands are oftentimes targeting large industries because they're targeting the people that are a part of the industries, but they don't know how to fit into them. And so what was important to me is, though, even though we have Coexist, it's Game House in Midtown, we're opening up several more throughout the country, but it's not about just the space. It's about what we're saying and how we're connecting the world. How are we allowing creatives and technical minds to coexist? What does that relationship look like? What does it mean? How do we define it? And how do we help you understand it? And so after this talk, I want you to actually, those of you in here that are interested in building something, my call to action to you is to ask yourself those questions. And then reach out to me or Brandon or anyone that can be a resource to help you all understand it. A lot of people say things they've done, right, but they don't give you the roadmap to not do it the way I did it, but to understand, who are you authentically? How can you take whatever it is you want to do, lend yourself to it so authentically that no one can actually do this as ideally as you, because you were built for that. You all have a unique skill set, something that contributes the way you think. For me, it was the way I thought about the game. I thought about the game, because we all are playing one. I thought, how do creators fit into this if you don't know how to program? Because there's so many opportunities. And I said, I need to bring it to life. And so we started working with beauty brands. I'm a cosplayer, and I was on the cover of the New York Post. I did Mystique, right? So I wrapped my locks in red thread, and I was all blue. And we were talking to Valentino at a conference I went to. And she says, well, we're not really big into gaming. We don't really know how we fit into that. And I said, I'm gonna show you something. And I showed her that picture of me on the cover of New York Post. And she says, oh my God, that's so cool. I said, do you know how many times I had to apply my blue makeup? Don't you wanna be that brand? And immediately, she was like, I never thought about it like that. I said, I know. That's why you need strategic partners like me, who that's the way we think. And I want you to think about yourselves that way.
Ooh, that's huge, huge. Yeah, big shouts, big shouts. You touch on something so important, and I've been talking about that recently, where, especially when, the broad idea of gaming has been, just kind of siloed for quite some time, and I've been having conversations now about how gaming is culture, right? Like, gaming is no longer separate from culture. Gaming is embedded into almost anything you see. You may not just realize it yet. And that's even similar with anime, I'm sure, as you know. And especially in minority communities, right? Black and brown communities. They are, we have almost carried it on our backs for almost, at least as long as I've been alive.
We're carrying it.
Right? And making sure that it comes to light. But even with that, right? You've started in music. Originally, I started in tech. Yeah, we both wound up in gaming to some degree. And so what would you say some of those systems or people, even values that help hold the foundation for you as you pivoted?
Yeah, and so it wasn't a pivot as much as it was a progression.
I love that.
Right? Because you start somewhere. I started out with just the Game House. I realized community first. That's what we needed. Because in order to grow into anything else, I needed to hear from you. The next thing, and this is actually what my TED Talk is on, community-powered economies. If we're saying that in this industry we're pushing the needle and we are the pacemakers of this industry, then I need to know what you think. I need to understand what you feel. I need to know, why are you here? What made you want to engage in that? And so it was not building. I have a huge gripe actually about tech being built first and then trying to put it in front of the people. And they're like, well, why are you building tech? I said, because we're scaling, and I want us to scale agnostic of digital space. So now we're leveraging tech because it's a tool that has utility. We're building tech based off of understanding that we need to reach more people, that we're hearing from us, and we're not just in New York. So it's like, we're here, we're this location, and I need to create a pipeline that will allow us to express our needs and our thoughts so that we can then as a company fulfill them, and we grew because of that. And so that system one, understanding what do you need to put in place in order to grow. And I always think, and so now at this point, Coexist is an agency, right? We are a gamification agency because the byproduct of us building spaces, having the voice of the community power those spaces. Now, it's not just about those spaces and those brands you're talking about, they've been hair and beauty, clothing brands, like, oh my God, there's so many finance brands, wealth companies, because all of these brands want to be in front of who? Us. But again, they don't know how they fit into it. And so we now essentially provide services that help these brands innovate and really step into another generation. So we become the cultural bridge that helps them understand how to coexist with our authenticity as a community. And it all comes together.
I love that. I love that. Authenticity is a huge thing, right? Like, because I think that is such a foundational element, because if you're being authentically yourself, if you're aligned with what your values are, you can easily fall back to yourself and say, oh hey, am I still on par? Right?
So true.
Am I still going in the right direction? Is
Yes.
this progression actually upwards,
Yes.
or is it, taking a step back potentially?
Yes, I want to say this one thing. So I was having dinner with my friend, Cleo Thomas.
Yeah.
Y'all watch the Disney movie Holes? If Cleo sees it, shout out to Cleo. But we were talking about some of the guys over at RDC World, and there was like a premiere that they were going to, and one of the people was there in LA, and they were like, yo, you like this movie? This movie's trash. And he said it out loud, and one of the things that he appreciated was, in LA, people are not as vocal because they're like, oh, I don't want to offend people, I don't want to make someone mad. But that guy was so authentic to his perspective, and he knew his influence. His platform was so large that the reason people were tuning in was because he would never subscribe to something he didn't authentically believe. And I say that because you'll be in rooms with some people and corporations, and they will try to make you, well, I don't know, is this a really good idea? It's like, it's a great idea because I like it. And you're in the room for a reason. You never compromise your authenticity. Of course you learn how to be diplomatic. It's a game, we're playing it, so you understand that there may be a way to say things, but never compromising your authenticity means understanding your value. Why are you in the room? It's your meeting, and they're there for you, which means there's something distinctive about you, what you're contributing, that they're lacking. Otherwise, you wouldn't be there. And so no matter what jargon, no matter what systems, things, that people will always try to make you compromise. Always. Just don't do it. Just don't do it. Just don't do it. Like they said, just do it, but don't do that. Right? I can't stress it enough, because we live in a world where their perception and their preconceived notions about appropriate, that is not innovative. If it's been done, it's not innovation. It's literally the point, to create something that hasn't existed yet. And if that's a part of what your jam is and what fulfills you, you gotta follow that. And don't do it alone. Like, we're here, we're already community. Have intentional conversations. I know I'm saying this stuff, but it's because it's like so real, and I like these moments to make sure I'm leaving you with things that will transform the way you think about tomorrow and the rest of today. How you move in it matters, who you're connecting with, and most importantly, how you show up in it. Nothing is more valuable than that. And every company, if that's what you're going after, that's what they need. They need to know that you are going to be a bridge to a solution to whatever their problem is, and they got a lot of problems.
I love that, and you're not wrong. I mean, working with a lot of brands, the one thing that you'll come to find is that they definitely have problems that they're looking to solve, and they've hired tons of people.
Yes.
Isn't that like the whole McKinsey thing, right? Like,
Yes.
they're like, oh yeah, we'll spend millions of dollars
Looking to solve, have budgets to solve.
right, to turn HBO Max to HBO to Max to then HBO Max. Right? It's like, why did we do that anyway? I don't know. Let's go back. Right?
Somebody said, that's trash. And a lot of people said.
I'm sure we all did collectively when we saw them change the name. We were like, what are we doing? You know, and I guess just a couple things because we have a couple more minutes left, right? And you know, I think there's small actions lead to large improvements and large leaps, right? And so, you know, with I think coexist starting in your house to now having a location in Times Square, now looking at multiple other locations. What, you know, other advice would you say, as you've already given something for working with brands and showing them something different, but what would you say is something to reach for or something for the attendees if they're looking for even investors into their creative idea, into their brand?
I think the same thing I would say to people and the investors is don't be afraid to disrupt. Again, innovation doesn't happen because you're following what already exists. It's because you're taking something that exists, you're challenging it, and you're saying, I think there could be a different iteration of that. And so, one, in the space, we carved out space for these businesses. Before, we had to go to their turf, go to their summit, their conference, their whatever, where they're spending millions of dollars to show the consumers that they want to be in front of, hey, this is our display of innovation. And I said, that's really cool. Does that give you the conversion that you're looking for being here this singular time? Because we're opening these really innovative spaces and we've got space allocated directly for you. You can pay monthly for it, you can pay annually for it. But the same way you see a brand attach themselves to an arena. Think about it, there was the Staples Center, right, for a long time in LA. And then crypto came in and said, oh, we want to be the new Staples Center. And they're like, well, that's going to cost you $50 million. And they go, we'll give you 70. Because the things that happen in there, I want to be a part of that. And I apply that to our business. I was like, you all are spending all this money to be at the conventions that we go to. Well, we built this place where we are there every day. Don't you want to be a part of the games we're building? The music that we put in the games? You don't want to be a part of the podcast that we speak on? What about the clothes that we're designing? What about all of the progress? What about how we're impacting our nation? What about how we're transforming the narrative? Isn't this what you want to be a part of? This is checking your KPIs, right? And so now that comes with a price, but we're carving out space because one, we build space, we take space, and now we're welcoming them into our space. And the conversations they have like this will happen in our spaces, and more companies will say, we want to be in that space. And I go, we should open one in your location, and you should fund it. Praise God. And so I think that's the trajectory. It's understanding the perspective of what value means and how we create solutions that keep it going, and ultimately ensuring that you have the leverage from going to their place to then bringing them into our world and controlling the influence that we have because we built this world.
I love that. I mean, honestly, we built this space over here, right? Like all the lovely attendees, all the speakers that we've had, and you were with us last year too. Another returning guest, just like Joshua earlier, and then Len Books as well. You know, I think it's huge to say when we are not only taking up space, but we're creating this space. Because guess what? We are, and as I'm sure you will see for the rest of today, we are the ones in all of these industries, right? And not just in them, but leading them. And so with that, Jaye, thank you for your time. I appreciate you as always.